Hi, and welcome to another episode of Upgrade with Maria Kay, the podcast where your success, freedom, and happiness get a weekly boost. And again, it is a true honor to have you here. I love hanging out with you. I love getting your feedback and hearing from you over in the Facebook group. If you haven't already joined us, go and search Upgrade with Maria Kay and become a really valuable member of our wonderful community that is ever growing. So, for those of you who don't know, I help people all over the world create success, freedom, and happiness in their lives that they not only desire but truly deserve. And my main focus is on how we can take your life from where it is today or any specific area of your life that you're perhaps unhappy with currently and raising it up to an upgraded version. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean we completely change who you are. It means that we are just simply drawing out the areas and the parts of you and your life that are crying out for more. Why settle for mediocre when you can have outstanding? So each week, I take a topic that's either inspired by my clients or my students or my life, or perhaps you guys who have written in requesting that a topic be covered. And we go deep, we delve into it, and together we create a conducive space where I'm not perhaps giving you specific answers, or although there are times where I'll give you tips and tools and step-by-step actionable plans. But for the most part, my intention is to ignite you, inspire you, get you unstuck, thinking in a completely new way, looking at what's not working in your life and figuring out what will work in order to get you from where you are to exactly where you want to be. Very often I'll receive a message through an experience or something that I've been through in my own life as a way of urging me to share that kind of lesson with you guys too. And recently I experienced something that was a bit inconvenient at the time. I'll start from the beginning. Now, I'm currently back in the UK in our UK home for a very short period of time. And in the very first days that we arrived back, developed a blockage in the sink, in the kitchen sink. Now, I tried the usual things, getting the sort of high strength liquids that you pour down, and the powders and the plungers and all the types of things that you usually the go-to solutions initially if ever there's a blocked pipe or anything in the house. And this went on for a few days. Eventually, I tried to call my plumber, wasn't able to get through. So a friend suggested that I unscrew the underneath part, and I'm really no plumber or even any good at DIY. It doesn't interest me at all. But I gave it a go and unscrewed sort of one part of it, and we were able to clear the sink and have it functioning to a certain point, although it wasn't completely fixed. This went on for another few days, and then I thought to dismantle more of the pipe system. So I went in with my bucket and with sheer determination to get this fixed once and for all. And so I proceeded to take apart every single pipe element that was underneath the sink, creating this really, well, what was a really good supportive system that would drain out the excess water day in, day out when we were living in the UK. Now, it took a while of dismantling, unscrewing, undoing, taking apart what this original structure until I found the blockage. And that was a really euphoric moment for me. It was huge. It was icky and thick and really, you could see that no wonder there was a stunt in the flow of this system. Now, before I proceed any further with the story, I'd like to ask you a question. How often do we experience blocks or obstacles in our life? Quite often, right? And how often do we ignore them? Now, this was a huge inconvenience for me, this having to stop my flow of daily goings on with, clients and students and programs that I'm running and being a parent and so on and so forth. And also working on my personal life upgrade, which, if you don't know what I'm currently sort of into and what's coming next, tune into my YouTube videos. Literally search me on YouTube, or you can go back to the early podcasts to know that what's coming next and where we're going to be. Although we're currently back in the UK, we're on the move again. So, there's lots going on for me. And this blockage that I was having to deal with was really inconvenient. And me being me, which is quite stubborn at times, I wasn't really willingly putting everything aside to ensure that this block was taken care of. And that's something that I admit. And how often do we actually do that in real life? Whether it's blocks within our relationships, our finances, our happiness levels, the relationships we have with our immediate family. So back to the story. As I was there undoing this whole system that had been obviously in place for many years, right? It was tight, it was fixed really strongly. I found the block, cleared it away. That was a brilliant relief. Oh, it felt so light and airy to clear it. So after cleaning up the mess, it was time to put it all back together. Easy enough, right? No. In fact, it's got to have been one of the most puzzling things I have ever attempted to do. If you imagine a maths test, an IQ test, a science test, one of the most difficult jigsaw puzzles you've ever laid your eyes on, all of those types of things rolled into one, right? And think about how impossible it was. Now, as positive as a mental attitude as I approached this with, let's be really clear, and as determined and as fixated on the solution rather than the problem that I was, this thing was not coming together. And if you've ever seen the episode of Friends, if you've ever been a Friends fan, when Ross gets stuck in the bathroom and he basically outgrows his leather pants and he's trying to get these leather pants back on. And whatever he does, whether he uses lotion, Vaseline, talcum powder, they are not coming on. And this was how I was feeling in that moment. After about 2 hours of trying to fit this pipe system together again, I actually admitted defeat. More of a surrender rather than defeat, but it was a moment of, come on, enough. It's not wanting to go back together. There's something deeper here. You may wonder why on earth I'm telling you this story, but it's really relevant to this week's topic. In fact, it was the inspiration to this week's topic. So eventually, I got hold of my plumber. I explained the situation and he arranged to come as soon as possible within the next day. And even he, after around 60 minutes, turned to me and said, I have no idea how this was put together. This is a very complicated, weird, strange type of system. Fast forward to the completion phase, and we both agreed that it was to be put back together in a way that was logical for now, in a way that fitted now, rather than attempting to emulate what once was. Because clearly that original system was no longer congruent. It was no longer fitting or supportive of how things needed to be now. No matter how much bending and screwing and unscrewing and fitting together and puzzling and forcing and all of those things, no matter how much we tried, it didn't want to be back in its original form. Now, this for me was a huge analogy, a huge wake-up call, a big opportunity for me to share with you this week's topic, giving me beautiful leverage for me to explain to you, perhaps flag up for you as you move along on your upgrade journey, how sometimes when things fall apart, or when you physically or consciously take them apart to remove an obstacle or a block or overcome anything that needs attention or healing, sometimes when it's time to resume life, business, career, finances, parenting, relationships, when it's time to resume and come back together, things may or may not fit back together in the original format. Perhaps there's a new, upgraded, improved version of what you're experiencing or dealing with, ready and waiting for you. Now, the internet is full of success stories and real triumphant stories of people who have overcome the most dire of situations and life experiences. The stories that you hear of people overcoming cancer or any other serious illness and going on to achieve amazing things in their life. Stories of people who have been at the center or victim of abuse or a tragedy or any such thing in life. There is an element of breakdown occurring, whether it's a breakdown of a relationship temporarily, the breakdown of a body, health, your health, wellness, the failure of a business, or even just a system that's in place for any type of thing that's moving forward or being created in your life. The amount of times that people overcome those breakdowns, and when things are fitted back together, not only are they just as good, they are above and beyond whatever was. Now, my little story there of my pipe system that became blocked was a pain in the butt, highly inconvenient. When taken apart and blockage was cleared, did not want to fit back together in its original form. In fact, refused point blank. That little story there is a beautiful example of how we often push for things to be the same as they were. And I fell into that little trap, thanks universe, but not for long. As soon as the pipework was put back together in a different format, it hit me like a ton of bricks, or like a pillow full of fluffy feathers, let's say, because it was a lovely realization. It doesn't always have to be the same as it was. In fact, often, nearly always, there's a new and improved version ready and waiting. And today I want to share with you, I want to invite you to get excited about those breakdowns. Get excited about those blocks and your potential to overcome them or unblock them, as it were. Get excited. Allow them to be your forward pull. Imagine one of those giant magnets, one that you might see in a science museum or in a science experiment. Allow your blocks and obstacles to be that driving force that pulls you forward. And as you move forward, allow things to start to reform in the new, upgraded, improved way. Often, when a client first starts to work with me, they can find themselves in that broken phase, that sort of phase where things have kind of come undone. The blocks may still be there, usually they are, and that's one of our first tasks, is to sort of get really deep and see what they are and who they're representing and why they're there. But one of the first things that we have to overcome is the client's desire to have things be put back together in their original form. And I'll often hear the words, but this is how I've always done it. But this is what makes me happy. Or this is how I did it last time. Or this is what I learned on that course. Or this is what my last coach told me to do. And it takes time for them to really step away from the attachment and the need to have things be how they once were. One of my clients is a dance therapist and used to work in a certain way that would have her worn ragged, traveling all over, showing up in person, sometimes teaching full classes, sometimes only having a handful of people there, sometimes no show, whatever the weather, having to pull herself out of the house to go and earn this living. And when things weren't working, even when things were at their direst point, and we started working together, there was still this desire in her to recreate what had once been. So once we'd removed some of the blocks and started to sort of shine that torchlight and get real clarity on what it is she wanted and who she was evolving to be, there was still that need. Her ego was still kind of leading her, in a sense, backwards, to recreate what once was, but what clearly wasn't serving her, helping her, and really allowing her to upgrade to where she really desired to be. Now, what can cause this is one of our ego's most favorite ways to kind of muscle in and get its two pennies worth in with regards to our life, our upgrade, our everyday existence. And that is the need for certainty, the need for security. So anytime that we are either forming or reforming a certain way or method, life, way of being or system, our ego wants it to be what we know is not successful, but what we know. It's familiar, right? Regardless of whether it's successful or not, it's familiar. So when it's familiar, what is it? It's comfortable. It's comfortable, as well as many different attachments. Now, if you, for example, my holistic therapist, had learnt to work in a certain way. Often, if you've been trained a certain way, if you've been part of a well established industry, then going by the book is kind of ingrained in you, and veering off that path, or maybe choosing to go by your own self-created book is really, really scary. Now, the funny thing was with my whole pipe story again, I tried to search up on online, and using the great resource that is YouTube, how to do this thing, how to put this thing back together. But what I was finding was that every tutorial I was watching was totally different, was giving me different information for totally different types and sets of pipes. So again, the realization that there is no one size fits all formula. And this applies really to every single topic that I bring to you in each week. There is no one size fits all formula. But when we've been through a certain level of training or conditioning, our tendency to revert or resort back to that way of doing things, that way, that surefire way, the one that it says in the textbook, is the most comfortable, even though it doesn't work or it hasn't worked for us. So today, I want you to look at, first of all, where your blocks are. Now, they are always our real powerful indicators. They are our messengers, they're our messiahs, as it were. And once we can locate where things aren't quite flowing, a little bit like my pipe blockage, things were not flowing. Thank you very much. Huge blockage. So whereabouts are you? Perhaps maybe you've got it right in front of you, a block that you're experiencing. Now, it will be really unique and totally different to you, and whatever area specifically that you're experiencing a block in. But that will be your first flag point, your first indication. And then the question is, once you've unpicked it, undone it, imagine if it's a ball of wool or a tapestry or something that's in place, or even back to my pipe example, once you've undone the system to have a really good look inside, right? You'll get a closer look at the block, what it's made up of, what's causing it perhaps, and then dive in to asking, how can we dissolve this block? How can we remove it? How can we get rid? Now, if it's in a relationship, for example, chances are there's a need for communication. There's a need for really thrashing it out, everything out in the open, say it as it is, get the air totally cleared, and then start to fix things back together in a new, improved, upgraded manner. If it's finances, for example, if there's a real stunt in the flow of finances, again, it's about getting everything out in the open, putting all things out on the table, any debts, any overspending, any misspending, perhaps, and clearing any of those things that aren't getting in the way, any misspending, any debts, any perhaps inability to fully utilize your earning or attracting or creating power, right? And then once putting it back together, doing so in a new, congruent, upgraded manner. And the same would apply to any specific area that you're working in at the moment or looking at the moment. So where is it for you? What is it for you? Where perhaps you already know where the block is. Perhaps you already know what the issue is. Perhaps right now you're standing amongst perhaps broken pieces. an existence, a reality that seems to be cracked open, and you're feeling vulnerable, lost, confused, overwhelmed. These are prime opportunities to raise the bar for yourself, raise the standard that you show up to life every day inside of, your standard of living. Raise the consciousness from inside of which you operate. It's an opportunity to upgrade the systems, your thought systems, your emotional system, your relationships, your finances, your career, everything you're experiencing. It's an opportunity to upgrade and improve. Now, regardless of whether the system that you already had has worked and did work, once worked and supported and allowed you to move forward, the fact that there's a block, the fact that there's perhaps an emergency siren going off, because inside of everything lies a powerful message, a powerful nudge or pull, like that danger flag that you'll see on the beach when the weather's really, really crazy rough. If you see that danger flag, there's no way you're getting into the ocean, right? So when things don't flow in life, you're constantly having arguments with your family, if you're constantly feeling tired, ill, exhausted, overwhelmed, depressed, you're constantly feeling as though you're chasing your tail and there's never enough paycheck at the end of your month, then they are powerful opportunities for you to break things open and start to rebuild, reconnect in a more aligned manner. Because when we are cracked open, when we are sitting amongst perhaps broken pieces of once was a really sound system, a really powerful, supportive way that we were living, working, being, and we're currently sitting amongst the broken pieces, open, bare, naked, that's when we get to be in touch with the truth. The truth transitions as we do. What was once true for you may not be true now. What tends to happen, what we are so good at doing, is finding one truth maybe 10 years ago and never letting go of that. Holding on to it so tightly that we're bound to break it anyway. So as you may or may not be right now sitting amongst the broken pieces, as I was with those pipe pieces, feeling quite deflated and defeated, although I switched it to surrendered, I ask you to surrender too. Surrender it over to the force that takes care of you. Surrender it over so that you can be guided as to how to fit things back together. You could be shown the new truth of who you are and how you are to reconnect your personal pipes. Because to expect things to remain the same is putting a block on our upgrade. So I'm asking you to get out of your own way and be open to things taking a new form, brand new and upgraded, shiny and 5-star, 5-star for who you are today and who you're becoming tomorrow. And for that, sometimes we have to forget what things looked like in the past. I kicked myself for not taking a photograph of the pipe work before I undid every single screw and pipe. I was quite mad at myself for not taking a photo. But actually, I'm asking you to maybe put all photos, all memories, all attachment to how things used to be to one side, so that you can allow for the new, improved, congruent, upgraded 5-star version to come into play without any influence from the past. If you haven't already joined me over on the Facebook group, please do. I really want to hear about your upgrade journey. If you have friends and family who would benefit from these podcasts, please do share with them. We are here as a valuable community to help everybody who needs help in moving forward and leaving the past behind, creating the most powerful, exciting, and compelling upgrade story that is possible in this moment for them. Until